Welcome to the Unpacking Love podcast. On this podcast, we talk about some of the questions that you think about in your head, but you never say out loud. The goal is to discuss topics and in order to gain insight, tips and tricks to help us squeeze the most juice out of life. Today's topic is, why is self-esteem so important? And on today's episode, we've got Olivia Towers, professional dressage rider, social media influencer, entrepreneur, Christian, and an all-round motivated young woman who is focused on achieving her goals. So,
Woo!
How you doing?
Yeah, I'm actually nervous now. It's because you asked me if I was nervous.
Yeah.
Sweating.
Wow, we're at Olivia's now. We're actually filming at Olivia's. So, yeah, it's good to have you on the show.
I'm so excited. I'm so glad you've started doing podcasts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know, it's about time, isn't it?
Yeah, because we both know, like, you love to get into the deep conversations. So.
Yeah.
It'd be nice to actually record our conversations as well, because we've had so many over the years, and I used to take notes. Now I forgot to, but no, there's so much, isn't there?
Yeah, there's so much to cover.
Yeah.
And I mean, this is why I thought this topic would be really good for us to talk about, because of the journey that we've been on.
Yeah.
And because, like, you know, self-esteem is such an important issue in life.
Huge.
In general. But especially if you look at, you know, our situation where, like, when I first met you, where you were then compared to where you are now, it's like a total different person, isn't it?
Crazy.
Like,
I think it's insane how quickly it's happened as well.
Yeah.
And I think people around me think, yeah, they've really noticed such a big change so quickly.
Yeah.
Which is amazing.
Yeah. So where do you think you was, you know, when we first met? Because I mean, I remember when we did actually first met, we spoke on the phone, obviously. You contacted me and we spoke on the phone. And we had a big discussion and everything. Spoke for probably like an hour or so.
Yeah, it was actually at a show, I remember.
Yeah. And we discussed quite a bit there. And basically, you wanted help with your like marketing and getting like packaging yourself out there and all that kind of stuff, which we'll go on to in a bit. But one of the other things that I noticed immediately when I first met you, when I very first pulled up to your house, because I remember when I pulled up to your house and I met you, the first thing I noticed was you couldn't maintain eye contact.
I know, and you know that I still think about that when I see you, and
Really?
I still have to make sure that I do it. Like, even now, I'm like, make sure you look at him every so often, otherwise he'll be like, oh, maybe she's feeling a bit insecure.
Yeah.
But I think it's difficult with the eye contact thing, because all my parents and the people I'm around also struggle with eye contact, so you never get like challenged in it. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
No one ever looks at you and is like, look back at me.
Yeah.
So it kind of became the norm.
Yeah.
Like, I've noticed my parents do it all the time.
Really?
Yeah, so maybe that's where I got it from.
Yeah, must be.
Now I'm going to be like the whole thing,
like. Yeah, and I think, like, obviously, as you progressed, your self-esteem has gone up dramatically.
Yeah.
But ultimately, I think you recognise now that your self-esteem can actually change the choices and decisions that you make in life.
Yeah, 100%.
Massively. And I think a lot of the time, not just you, but people in general, when they have lower self-esteem, they make decisions and choices that they wouldn't normally make if they valued themselves more, or saw the value that they do actually hold.
Yeah, definitely. And
I mean, personally, for you, I think one of the main points was, you know, when I come to you, I saw the value that you potentially had. Like, I saw your potential. Because you had a lot about you then, and you knew exactly what you wanted to achieve.
Yeah.
And you already had that in place. It was just how do you go about it? But it was, I think, I'm not sure if anyone had ever told you you're capable of doing this.
That's so true.
I think that was the big, like, you know, when the penny dropped and it was like, yeah, I can. But even then, it still took a bit of a process.
Isn't that mad, though? How old was I when I met you? That 23?
Must have been about,
24? 20? Like, how did I get to that age without someone saying, you can do this?
Yeah.
Not that my parents weren't supportive or people around me weren't supportive, but I think they never said it bluntly. Like, and just never kind of pushed it in that area. I just don't know. Maybe they didn't think that I needed it, or that was like lacking in me. So they just didn't think they needed to say it.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was definitely, and even at school and stuff, no one ever said, you are capable of this.
Yeah.
And I think that was definitely missing, which was really sad. But again, school's different, isn't it? It's academic. And I was a creative, didn't know that at the time. Wasn't even that good at sport. So it's either you had to be really good at sport, really good like academically.
Yeah.
And because I was in the middle, and with my creative side, I said this to you last week, didn't I? That it almost was that flamboyant, they couldn't handle it. So I was like, I want to make this and do this. They were like, no, try this.
Yeah.
And it's like all the time stifling it.
Yeah.
But no one ever went like, we think you're really capable
Yeah.
of this, which is so sad.
Yeah.
But
it is mad. But I think that is a part of why you probably weren't. Because and it happens a lot with creative people in the sense of like,
yeah.
you're a creative, and when you go to school, you're told to be an academic, and you're
Yeah,
told
that's
to
so
like,
true.
it's that simple thing of, even with children, like when children and people are daydreaming, they say
Yeah.
stop daydreaming. But really, when you say stop daydreaming to a child, you're saying stop being creative.
And that's just what happens, isn't it?
Exactly. So if you're in a system where, it's always stifling and pushing you down and not telling you to show that real side to yourself, then you're not going to see the value in yourself, because everyone's trying to tell you to stop being yourself.
Yeah.
Do you get me? So it can be kind of that, especially creatives. I don't know what it
Yeah.
is about creatives, but when I come across creatives, sometimes, if they're not mature creatives, they're a lot more reserved. And they're a lot more,
Really?
yeah, they're a lot more, they don't be themselves in front of certain circles. Whereas people that are more academically driven,
Yeah.
sometimes they have that sense of value, because people get a degree, come out,
Yeah.
or they get a doctorate or whatever, a master's, and then they feel accomplished. They don't always feel, confident, because people come out of uni with like, they haven't got real world experience of being out there in the world. And
so true.
They're going into a world that they're not familiar with, and it's a new challenge. But they feel like they've got a sense of worth because they've got that degree. Do you get me? Whereas as a creative, if you haven't, then it's like, well, what have I got? I haven't got no one piece of art or one piece of work that I can point to that makes me feel like, yeah, I'm doing a good job.
Yeah, and it takes time, doesn't it, to also discover what area to go into with it.
Exactly.
It's a bit different now, though. Like, I see the younger creatives, because of social media, it's almost easier for them to create younger.
Yeah.
I think even when I was like 14, 15, it just was difficult. You couldn't get that out into the world.
Yeah.
And now it's good, but it's also scary.
Yeah.
Because as they're going through that changing, where you kind of figure out your character.
Yeah.
They're putting that all onto social media for people to be like, oh,
that's
no,
it.
Yes, no.
And if they don't get the likes, then they don't see their worth.
Yeah, that's so sad.
And that's the thing. And that's the thing of
huge, isn't it?
External affecting the internal, isn't it?
Yes. Yeah.
So what do you think about, like, your journey of self-esteem? When would you say there's one point where you could point at and say, well, this is when I realised the value that I have to offer the world?
It wasn't like, I don't think it wasn't this big moment. It's slowly, gradually built. But I still think that I would say my self-esteem is much better, but when I think of my value, I still underplay myself a lot.
I agree. And I always tell you this.
100% agree. Yeah, which is really tough. But like self-esteem wise, like I think when I became a Christian, it really made me start seeing things differently. I stopped looking at like the worldly way and started looking at, like I am fine just the way I am. Like I can be loved the way I am, but that doesn't mean I don't want to go out and do more. But I'm okay. Instead of like I have to be more to kind of earn that self-esteem. I think that's the thing that I struggle with massive with self-esteem, is that I kept trying to earn it, even for, like, to prove it to myself, not just other people. But then again, I was trying to get it from other people. So I was like, if they say I'm okay, then I'm okay.
Yeah.
And so I was really emotionally dependent on people's views of me, which was really tough. Great when they are like, you're doing really well, because you're like, wow, you're such a high, but then you crash when someone makes a tiny comment that shouldn't really bother you that much. You kind of go like up and down all the time, which is really exhausting. But yeah, the value thing, I still think I need to kind of keep growing in that. I think as the social media platform grew and you kind of showed, like, you kind of kept encouraging it, I went, wow, like, okay, there is something in there that like I can give value to the world, which was really exciting to kind of discover, which was nice. But yeah.
So do you think when it comes to, like personal choices in life, like you mentioned, you're always looking for that, well, you used to always look for that validation from an outside source. So that would be your friends, your circle of influence. And often, I mean, when I first met you, your circle of influence is totally different to what it is now.
So true.
And if you look at it, you are the 5 people you hang around with most, and I say that every single episode, it always comes up somehow.
Yeah.
But your circle has literally changed, and that isn't to put anyone down that was in your previous circle, but
No.
to where you're going and where you're like at now,
Yeah.
you needed to make certain changes. Just for the fact of, you know, everyone's influenced in some way, shape or form. But for you, you're not looking externally now for value. Like you kind of understand your value now. Don't get me wrong, everyone likes to be liked and feel that sense of belonging.
Yeah.
But you're more sure of yourself, as in like, you know, this is the proper things that I should be looking to. Someone doesn't agree with it, that's fine. And would you say that comes from a biblical kind of aspect of, you know, you're not really fazed by matching what people say is right in the world?
Yeah, there's a few things. I think the biblical thing, definitely. But I also think there's a part of me that kind of likes to go against the grain. It's always been in there.
Yeah.
I like to be slightly different.
You was a rebel when you was younger, weren't you?
Yeah.
I saw some of those photos.
I know. I think that helps in a way, because I don't want to be like everyone else. But also I think when you go through it, like, and you start trying to find validation through people, you then, when you get it, you realize that it's not like, it doesn't feel like this deep sense. It's like a little bit fluffy, if that makes sense. It doesn't what's the word? It doesn't like fulfill you. It's not like wholehearted kind of like, it's a little bit like putting a plaster over it.
Yeah.
And so when you kind of try that, and I tried every single area from like guys to how I looked to like the last one was like how successful I could be. I think when you've tried them, I sort of realized like, no. And that's where with like the biblical stuff, it's like, for me, that's literally the only way. I was like, that I could see that was logical.
Yeah.
To kind of find that, which was really nice. But I definitely learned the hard way. But
Yeah.
we were saying this, weren't we? Most people do learn through pain.
That's
and I
it.
feel like I've
had your fair share.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, especially with the complex side of, you know, males are different when they have low self-esteem compared to like females with
really?
self-esteem, I think. Like,
That's interesting.
I think a female would often stay in a relationship that isn't good for her because she's got low self-esteem and she thinks she isn't worth something.
You see that all the time though.
Yeah.
Where it's like the funny thing, like he's punching. I was all the time I see it.
Yeah.
Like women settle.
Yeah. They shoot lower than what they're worth.
Yeah.
Yeah. I actually had a conversation with my wife's sister the other day, and we was talking about a similar situation where, you know, people they think somebody is like good for them, and they think like they've done well to get that person, where in reality that person isn't on their level. And that isn't being nasty or anything like that, but you have to be realistic when you look at, and I'm not just talking about,
it's not being mean about that person, is it? People think that that's always the way.
Yeah, but some people just aren't meant to be together. I think it's a character thing where, you know, like people force it because they think, oh, he's shown an interest in me. And a lot of young women, from what I've seen, when a male shows, you know, a compliment or shows an interest and they seem to be nice in the first 6 months, they go emotionally all in because it's the first time someone's really shown an interest in them, who they are, and they've given them compliments. And now they're thinking, well, no one else has done this. So
that's it. They almost haven't seen the better. So they're like, this must be the best I can get. And I think people get scared. Like, what if that's all I'm ever going to get? I'll keep on to that.
Yeah. And they clutch onto it. And that's the problem.
I did this.
Yeah.
When we speak about like the value and the self-esteem stuff, like I've spoken to you about relationships how many times? Like I think it was one of the hardest areas in my life.
Definitely, because often,
for sure.
And I realised, I mean, coming back to an episode that I talked about yesterday, the other day, the last episode was on friendship, and literally, like, you pick friends that agree with your terms, like, agree with your points of view and things like that. And coming back to, like, when you was in a relationship with somebody, me and you didn't really speak about that. It was kind of like the unsaid thing.
We did at the beginning. And then when I kept going back, I was like, oh, I can't have this conversation again. But you really challenged me with it straight off the bat with relationships, and that's actually not why I split up with a boyfriend. But I remember we had this talk after filming, and you were like, you have to take it more seriously than you are. Like, it's not, you're not messing around here. And I was like, whoa, like someone's called me out. Because like my parents, they never really did. Like, they would disapprove, but they'd never be like straight up.
Yeah.
Whereas you just said it, and I was like, whoa. And then I actually had that conversation with him really soon after that. It's not that you made me split up with him, but it was that like holding me accountable for this like higher standards, and you're like, I think it was that you're worth more than that. Yeah. Was a huge thing.
Yeah.
But I needed someone to challenge it.
Yeah.
And not to be too soft with it either.
That's it. Sometimes you have to be blunt. There's a time to be blunt, and there's a time to be subtle. But I think sometimes to get the point across, sometimes you have to be point blank blunt.
Yeah.
And, and I mean, I think you know the intent behind why I say certain things and like why I come to you about certain things.
Yeah.
You know the intent is always out of love and respect. It's never like spiteful or anything like that. It's always a positive.
And what was great about you as well is that you lived it out too. It's not that you were being, you should do this, but I didn't.
Yeah.
It was the fact of when you spoke about your relationship and I looked at like the sacrifices you made and like how you did it. I was like, no, he's done that. So he's coming from a place of understanding.
Yeah.
But also, like holding the standards up. And I think that was great for me because I didn't have many people around me that were holding those standards up.
Yeah. That's it.
Because it's the worldly thing and then the godly thing is so different. And if you were like, messing around in a relationship, you'd be like, you're young, have fun.
Yeah.
And then, you were kind of like, no.
Exactly.
Sort it out. Yeah.
Exactly. Because I just think it's important, isn't it? And I mean, I think you're now that person. I don't know, you might be within your friend group, but I think you're that person to say what people need to hear rather than what they want to hear now. But I don't think you were back then.
No, because I'd hate upsetting people.
Yeah, because you was more agreeable. Like you liked everyone to get along, and again, like I've talked about this in a previous episode, but I think that's a trait in the majority of women.
Yeah,
the majority of women.
But maybe that's more what we were meant, like maybe designed to do.
Yeah.
Like pull people together.
Yeah.
It is hard though, isn't it? Because it's like as you say it, you can see that ticking over in their brain, and they don't like it, and. I then want to like explain to them why I'm saying this, and I'm like, blah, blah, blah. And then sometimes it's like, no, you need to let them like sit with it.
That's it.
But that's why I really struggle with splitting up with people as well. I would be in a relationship for months before I was like, this isn't working, because it's horrible. I think because I can read people well.
Yeah.
I could see like in their eyes and their body language, just their whole, not that I was their whole world, but where it just goes poof.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I've just done that. But
and the thing is, you've got that power.
Yeah,
at the time, like, because I remember we've had other conversations about other situations, and that you hold the power. That like you called the shots, so to speak. Like but you kind of held on to that.
What's
and you
that? The alpha
that.
female.
Yeah,
I was always been the alpha female.
Yeah, you've always had that in you, kind of thing.
Yeah.
It's weird,
it's kind of scary though. Like it's kind of intimidating having that within you when you don't know how to use it.
Yeah.
It's like having a superpower and being like, whoa, it's too much. I don't know what to do with this.
Exactly.
And you sort of run away from it and pretend like it's not there. And I'm not like that. But yeah, I think it's where the leader stuff comes into it, doesn't it?
Yeah. And that can also cross into your professional world as well.
Oh, it definitely does.
100%.
It's almost easier though in a professional world.
Yeah.
Than your personal life.
Yeah. Because I've said to you plenty of times, like, we talk about, like, business and, even things to do with, like, sponsorships and
I know.
Like that. And
I'm like, oh, what do it?
And you always shoot low. Like, you don't go high as what you should, because your value and what you can deliver for businesses that, you only pick businesses that you agree with and you generally feel that have value for your audience, which I think 100% is needed. And I only work with people that have that. Like, you can't just be like, hi, buy this.
It's not authentic then, is it?
That's what I mean. So because of that, that's really good. But at the same time, you will say like a low price to advertise just to be nice and be agreeable. Whereas
Yeah.
that isn't, like, if they was to pay anyone else for what you're offering them, they'd be paying a lot more, because the amount of value that you can give to a business is massive. But
Yeah.
I think you're seeing that now, but you didn't always.
But that's where your personal life, you can't separate your business
Yeah.
and your personal life. You just can't do it. Because how you view yourself, like, personally is how you're going to view yourself in business.
Exactly. That's why I don't believe in the saying, when people say, oh, it's business. Like,
That's so true.
I don't believe in that, because most of the time it is personal. Like, most of the time it's some
Yeah,
shape
but then
or
also,
form.
like, where do you draw the line? Then it will start, if you do your business differently, it will start leaking into your personal life.
I think that's just a natural thing. I think you have to take your personal character within your business. I think
It's holistic,
your
isn't
character makes that. It's like, say, when I started working with you originally, it started out as business. Do you get me? And then when I got to know you, like, you get more involved, and I started to care for you.
But you said
like,
that, didn't you?
Yeah.
You said straight off the bat, if we're going to work together and we're going to do the social media, we're going to have to, like, look really deeply to, like, there'll be things that we pull up and drag up, and we'll have to look at them. And I was like, okay.
Exactly.
It's like, whoa, okay.
Exactly.
He wasn't joking, was he? He's like, got in.
And they was the first steps, wasn't they? Because I mean, I remember the first exercise that I gave you was when we sat down and we went through that sheet. And we went through your interests, your knowledge, what you've got knowledge on.
Yeah.
And that could be something that you've, like, you've...
Yeah, you kept having to be like, there's more in there. Like, that's knowledge. I was like, is it?
You was
like,
limiting what you were showing. Because we had interest, knowledge, and passion. And you had to write down each one of them, how many categories that you've got.
I still have this.
Do you?
Yeah.
I'd love to... You got to post
It's
that.
hilarious because it's so different to now what I'm like.
That's what I mean, because you've grown. But even back then, like, I remember the first time you showed it me, I was like, nah, you've got more than that. Like, and then we had to go into it, and then I started asking you questions. Yeah. And I remember when I kept on saying why after everything you said.
Yeah.
I could, like, you'd say something and I'd say why.
To me, this, like, what you're saying, it sounds so basic, and I'm like, obviously.
Yeah.
But people genuinely don't know.
No.
Like, to ask themselves, or like to get someone to ask them those questions.
But that's the thing, like, and that's the powerful thing I think about this podcast, because this podcast delves into those questions that people think in their head, but they never say out loud. Or some people that don't even think at all. And the answers are within the questions.
Yeah.
It's just that they don't ask them.
So true.
And sometimes you do need someone from the outside, like I do. Like, I need the certain areas of my life, I need to go to somebody else because I'm already in it. Whereas I need someone looking in to
outside perspective.
Yeah, exactly.
Definitely.
So I think with you, I mean, after you kind of got an understanding of what you're knowledgeable about and what you want to achieve, because the number one thing you always said is you just want to help people.
Yeah.
Like, that was the number one thing. And that's what
so
kind
wholesome.
of sold it for me. Because in a way, I was interviewing you.
I know you were.
Whether I was going to work with you.
Why do you think I was
not.
so stressed? I was like, no, it was good.
You did. So did you sense it?
Yeah, but you're quite, like, authoritative by nature, I think. Like, oh, well, I think at that point I was, it was intimidating. Because you kind of say the things that people often just overlook or don't even notice.
Yeah.
And you see it, and then you're like, oh, and it made me notice things, and then it's that holding you accountable and, like, to a higher standard.
That's it.
It's amazing, don't get me wrong. I think that the funny thing is people really want that.
Yeah.
So many people say this to me. I just wish I had someone around. And I'm like, you say you wish, but could you actually handle it? Because it's not comfortable. It's not easy. They're not going to come along and fix it all for you. They're going to point it out, and then you have to go and do it.
Yeah.
And that's really hard.
And it can be intense. I mean, I bet sometimes you're glad when you see me drive out your driveway.
No, not anymore. No, that's fine. Sometimes I have been.
But you can imagine, like, sometimes it can be overbearing. I mean,
I think, honestly, to start with, I was just so asphyxiated by the fact things could be different.
Yeah.
I was almost, like, so obsessed and, like, excited that I could change, because for so many years I didn't think I could.
Yeah.
And then after, like, a year, maybe it hit where it was like, it's hard. It's like the initial buzz wears off.
Yeah.
That was tough. And then it almost integrated a little bit more, like, naturally and relaxed then.
Yeah.
But the first initial year, I was just like, wow, this is amazing. And I was like, I just felt like nobody else understands me. Theo gets it. My parents, like, for goodness sake. But they were so different to it.
Yeah.
It was really cool.
Yeah. There was a lot to it. But I mean, it just shows the power of self-esteem in the sense of like, you know, there's different areas that self-esteem can impact you. Like you got personal, professional, but then you've got also your outlook to other people as well. Like I think that's a massive one. Like people that you would consider friends aren't really friends, really, when you look at it and you know your self-worth. Sometimes you're putting up with, you know, friends that aren't necessarily there for you as friends, just for the fact that you want to belong and you don't see your worth and you think these are the best friends I can get. Like some people put up with that as well.
I know.
And that can lead to, you know, peer pressure, like especially children.
Yeah.
Like one of the most important points and one of the things that I always stress with my daughter Niana is like I just want to make sure that she's got that self-esteem to the point where she's confident and she isn't peer led. Like as soon as they become like, you know, they have to look to another child or another group for kind of acceptance, that's when they're more likely to follow the crowd. Whereas
so true.
If they're confident with themselves and they know their self-value and worth, they're not going to follow no crowd because they know what they're worth. So that way they're guided by their own moral compass, so to speak. But adults are the same as children. It's no different.
That's so true.
Do you get me? Like it's just a higher level. That's all it really is. But I think that's why it's important. But I mean, with riding, how would you say self-esteem has like impacted your riding?
Oh, where do you start? Like, hugely. Because the thing is with riding is it's never going to go right all the time. There's always going to be mistakes. You can't get it perfect with an animal. And if you have low self-esteem, when those mistakes kick in, you automatically like doubt yourself and you're like, I'm not good enough for this. You don't see that like I think the fear of failure was huge when when you have low self-esteem. You're so scared because your self-worth comes from succeeding to prove that you're okay. And so when you hit a hurdle, whether that be a small one, a big one, it hits you so hard. So with horses, it's just, there's so many mistakes. And you're working with an animal, and they react so much to when you're doubting yourself.
Yeah.
Because it's that energy you give off. It's that frustration, and they pick that up. There was something on Facebook, I think it was 2 days ago, and it says a horse can hear your heartbeat from 4 meters away or 4 feet away.
No.
And also when they're in the herd together, they sync their heartbeats.
Yeah.
And then when one raises, that's the alert that something's going on.
Yeah.
So they're uber sensitive.
That's
so you think
really,
like how we can read people, they're probably better than we are.
Yeah, definitely.
Like they'll be able to pick everything up. So if you're doubting yourself, they'll know it.
Yeah.
Whether you're putting on the fake smile or the like, you know, like the power poses or the things now, these self-help books, I do those bunny ears, would be like, stand in front of the mirror and tell yourself this. And it's like, you can do that all day long. The crux of it is still going to be there, and then the horse is going to pick that up. So there was no faking it, and I tried for years to kind of fake this. I'm okay. And it was so exhausting. I always felt like I was putting my hand over like the lid of this box that was like exploding with insecurities. And I was like, I can't keep my hand on it all the time, and it would just explode out. And then it would all end up in this big mess. And I got so upset at myself and so frustrated. But then when you start to get more self-esteem, more self-worth, it's almost like quiet confidence. You don't feel that you have to do the power pose in front of the mirror, you know? It's it's more organic.
Yeah.
It's almost like you don't notice it as much.
You're calm, collective, and confident.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like, you know, when they talk about like surgeons doing so like when they're doing like brain surgery, they almost get into like a flow and they lose themselves. It's kind of that when you're riding, when you're like calmly confident. It's just naturally happening, and you're not thinking, I have to be this, do this, like I am worth this. It's you don't. Not that I think positive talk's great, but it comes to a point where you don't even need to be thinking about it. It's naturally happening, which it is. That's where it's at now. And it doesn't mean I don't have to check myself. Like yesterday, I had a really tricky time with one of the horses, and I was getting really like honestly, I was like, I had to just stop, and I was like. And that's insecurities coming out in like frustration. But then I kind of give myself a moment to like pause and think about it, and then and then it all kind of comes back in.
Yeah, 100% see what you're saying. And animals are sensitive. I mean, humans are sensitive and pick up on things anyway. Like some humans, I think there's different character archetypes to different people.
Yeah.
And I think, some people can read people well, like body language alone. I think it's something like 80% of communication is body language.
It's mad, isn't it?
Yeah. And when someone's got low self-esteem, like it comes off in their body language and you can see
That's what I hate, though. I hate that I can't. It's where the anxiety thing came out.
Yeah.
I hate that I can't hide it. I hate that I can't hide how bad, like not bad I'm feeling, or how scared I'm feeling, or how insecure I'm feeling.
Yeah.
Because I can see it in other people. If I didn't, I wouldn't react as much to it. But I think that's where the anxiety thing's been really hard for me, because I was like, how can I now look confident because people are going to see it in me, and I didn't like that.
But I think anxiety is a tough one. I think we can touch on that actually. But I heard a saying by Jordan Peterson. He's a psychologist, really good psychologist. I've told you about him before. But he says people that are creatives and people that are visionaries, they overthink.
Yeah, massively.
They overthink situations. So when they overthink and delve more into it, like that's when it starts to build the tension.
Yeah.
And he had a simple exercise for people that get social anxiety. And he says, like, when people think about going to a large group or even going to meet someone, even if they know someone very well, sometimes they can still feel socially like scared. Like the main thing he gets them to focus on, there's little exercises and treatments that he gets them to do. But one of them is simple things like, focus on speaking to the other person and focus on them rather than
that's
yourself.
what I'm literally just been doing through this, because I can even feel myself. It's that there's a slight pressure, for example, with this. It's like I don't want to get up and have to leave. But then because I don't want to do that, I then start going, don't do that. Don't do that. That would be the worst thing you could do. That's going to ruin the whole thing. Like, it's going to be really annoying. Then it's going to be obvious that you were like a bit nervous, and then it's going to get, and my mind like runs off, and then I have to go, no, like just concentrate on what he's actually saying and take it back to that human level. And I've had to work really hard with that. But for me, that it's so difficult when sitting still, because how I distract myself is moving around. So that's why the airport thing.
Yeah, the airport, that was a mad one. Shall we tell that story?
Let's talk about that, because that was really deep.
I didn't understand that when that was happening, because I mean, just to give you some context.
Yeah, let's go into context.
We went away to the World Championships, wasn't it? Was it Rotterdam or was it Sweden?
Rotterdam.
Yeah, so we was in Rotterdam and we're coming back. We've done the filming, we've gone to the World Championships. We've done everything we needed to do, had a great time and everything. And then we're waiting for the plane to turn up, and literally waiting at departures, wasn't it? And
at the gate,
me, you and your mum are sitting there and we're waiting for it, and the next thing you know, you've got up and says, come on mum, let's go. And I'm sitting there, I'm thinking, go where? Like, the plane ain't even here. Like, I'm looking around thinking, like, where are you going? Like, and I'll start to panic. Then I'm thinking, have you seen something that I saw? And then
it's catching.
You walk off, and then I'm sitting there with the bags and that. You've just left all the bags. I'm sitting there with the bags, and I'm thinking, no way, what is going on? Then the next thing I see you walking back, and I think, yeah, we're back on. Then you walk straight past me and you say, don't ask.
Yeah, it's that talking about it though.
Yeah, and then you walk straight past, and I'm thinking, what's going on? And I thought to myself,
this is happening.
Yeah. But it was only at that point that it clicked, like, because I've never seen it before.
Yeah. So have you never seen it happen to someone else?
I probably have, but I've not been.
You wouldn't notice.
Yeah, it's not someone in my immediate circle, so I've never really picked it up like that. So, but I understood it because one minute I was talking to you, and then next minute, like, you're gone. Like,
no, do you know what it was? We weren't talking, because I can tell you exactly what happens. Talking's good.
Yeah.
When you sit with your thoughts, that's when it's the absolute most dangerous. I was trying to read a book, and I kept reading the same line over and over again, and I felt it comes in waves. That's the best way to describe it. It washes over you, and you're like, and because I'd got over it, I'd had it really badly. This like social anxiety. I guess it is social, because it never happened to me when I'm by myself. And I kind of moved forwards from it when I first started changing my mindset around met you, and I didn't have it badly. And I thought I've cured it because I've done all this work. So when it came back, it was almost worse, because I was like, I can't get away from this. It could creep up on me at any time in my life. And that's what scared me the most. I'd done all this work with my mindset, and it had come back, and I was like, oh, and it's so exhausting. It would be like, I can't say it would be like that, but like having an illness again. You're like, not again. Because it was a mental health issue, isn't it? It's like, I can't go through this again. And it just hits you like a ton of bricks. So it washes over you. And I was like, just sit there, like let it flow over you. Because that had worked before, but it was just, I think because I've been fighting it off the whole time we were in Rotterdam.
Yeah.
I was exhausted, like exhausted from fighting it off. And I had no option but to sit in that airport. I couldn't distract myself. And so I was trying to read this book, and then that was it. It's because I'd sat there and let the thoughts build up. And then it's your full panic mode. It's full. It would be like if a lion was chasing you. That's how scared you get.
Yeah.
And they talk about it. You go from like green to amber to red to... And once you're in the red section, you can't get yourself back out of it because your logical thinking disappears.
Yeah.
So once you've gone from green to like amber, okay, you can sort of talk yourself down. But once you're out of that, you are not logically thinking.
Yeah.
So however much I tried to talk to myself, it doesn't matter. You're kind of gone. And so you hit panic mode and you just want to get out of there. You're in an airport. You can't get out of there. And that's what makes it worse, is the fact that I can't go. So I'm stuck in this airport. I know I have to get on the plane because otherwise you're stuck in a country. And that's why airports are the worst for me, because there is no get out option. Whereas when I know I've got a get out option, it calms me and then I'm fine. But it was terrible. Terrible. And it's that thing of I don't want to show weakness in front of anyone, like you or like Dave sat across from like anyone, regardless if they're a stranger or a loved one. I hate it. And I don't want them to see me lose it, you know, and draw attention to myself. And then basically explain it, where the root of the anxiety comes from is from being sick in front of a group of lads when I was 8. I didn't know how to handle it. I'm 8, and it was my big brother's friends. We were on a ski trip, and so that has like lived with me now. Don't embarrass yourself. Don't embarrass yourself. Because it's a horrible, uncomfortable feeling, and you do not realize how much something can live with you and walk with you. And I remember speaking to Ali when I was doing like therapy with her, and I was like, she went, "Did a trauma happen to you?" But it's not a trauma. I was sick. It wasn't a big one, you know, that people talk about, like really terrible things happened. And then she went, "Why are you trying to compare that to something else? You don't want to compare trauma." She's like, "If it was traumatic to you, it's a trauma." And I was like, wow. Okay.
That's the thing. It always comes back to trauma, doesn't it?
Oh,
everything.
It's always the childhood. It's always something in the childhood.
It is. And I think that's an important thing that people, you know, that often overlook, the trauma. Like, everybody's got trauma, and doesn't matter how they compare it, whether it's big or small.
That's it, isn't it? Don't
in your
compare
world,
it.
It's like, it's bad. If something bad in your world happens, it's bad. So you've got to accept it as that. So what would you say, like, tips wise, to help people to deal with this, like similar people that might have something similar where, you know, they probably don't even recognize because they haven't gone to therapy yet, and they haven't spoke to someone, and they haven't pointed out, you know, the thing that it is. Those people that don't even recognize that, but they've got the anxiety. How would you say to deal with that situation?
It's difficult, isn't it? Because some people say don't talk about your past, don't go back to it, because it will bring it back up. There's different ways you can do it. You can almost do it where you just move forwards past it, or you go back to it. I did the going back to it thing, and it didn't instantly heal it. And even though I know where it came from, that didn't instantly heal it. For me, the thing that helped the most, I say it helped the most, it's been hard with the COVID thing, because I got over it, the second kind of thing that happened, and COVID hit, and obviously you can't go into social situations. So for me, it's like, I can't go and face that fear, which is annoying because it makes the fear build more. It's like, it's not terrible now, but like, it's still a little bit there. But for me, a big thing was accepting it and going like, this is just this is just how it is. Like, it's not bad. It's not making you a bad person. And also to try and not think of myself as a really weak person because of it, which is still really difficult. Honestly, I'd love to say I completely don't look at myself for being weak with it, but there is a part of me that's like,
Yeah.
So annoying. So that's really tough. But I think it's accepting it's slow, but trying to accept that it's okay. And I think the other thing that massively helped me was to realize just because I was anxious one day doesn't mean I have to be anxious the next. Because as an overthinker, I used to be like, well, I felt like, for example, I feel anxious doing this podcast. Okay, now later on in the day, I'm going to be anxious doing something else. And then tomorrow, and that's kind of how it spirals out of control. And just realizing, like, just leave that in that moment. That was just a moment. You don't have to, like, take it with you.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to define you. And I think that's really helped me. And just to kind of go, yeah, like some days I am going to feel anxious. Yeah. Some days I'm not.
That's it.
But for me, I think the biggest thing that I need to kind of overcome with it is that I guess it is self-worth, isn't it? It's that I'm okay with myself being like that, because all it is, it's the judgment of others I'm worried about.
Yeah. So do you think that comes back to the topic then? Self-esteem? Do you think?
Yeah, like don't get me wrong, my self-esteem is way better.
Yeah.
But I don't think you ever reach an end destination with mindset or something. No. You're not going to suddenly go, I've reached level 100. Let's stop here.
I'm not even in my final form kind of thing.
Yeah, like you're always evolving.
Yeah.
So it's better, but there's still massive room for growth in it. And it's definitely self-esteem.
And there's different chapters to your life as well, because I mean, going from like, you know, you one big achievement now, we're sitting in your home. Like, and you've got your own home now. Like, so like you as a homeowner, and you about to, you know, when you settle down with someone to start your family, that's a new chapter, which motherhood brings on new anxieties. Because, I mean, my wife, for instance, like, she used to be fine with flying. Like, flying used to be fine. I used to be the nervous flyer.
Really?
Like, yeah, I used to be, like, not 100% nervous, but
I think
anxious. I'm better when I'm on my own, flying. Rather than when I'm with my wife.
I'm the same. Like, it's really weird.
And but Stacey, she was fine flying on her own, but when we flew together, she got a bit anxious. But soon as we had Nyana and we flew with Nye, we went to Cape Verde.
Oh, you've told me about this.
And she was proper anxious. I've never seen her anxious like that.
Really?
And I didn't understand it. But then
mothering instinct.
Yeah, it's the mothering instinct, because she wants to protect, and she's thinking, well, if something happens to the plane, like, how are we going to keep Nye safe? Like, what are we going to do? Like, and you start to overthink. It does come back to overthinking, I think, sometimes. Yeah. Not saying all anxiety is overthinking, but it is when you analyse something from a new territory that you've never faced. It's like so you go into the world, and it's like, you know, you're used to activities being this, and then all of a sudden this new challenge comes, and it's like, oh, hold on, this is new.
Yeah.
Do you get me? Like,
it's so interesting you say this though, because my mum said she used to be anxious in different situations, but when she became a mum, it stopped it, because she was so worried about the child. Yeah. That she was her focus was on that.
Yeah.
So this is where it's difficult though, isn't it? It's so individual to each person.
That's it, because there's different types of characters.
We've all had such different journeys as well. Something could trigger someone and you're like, calm down.
That's it.
But it's like a smell, a sound, anything can just be like, poof, and off you go.
Yeah.
So it's really interesting.
It is a deep one.
Yeah.
And I mean, Jordan Peterson does talk about it a lot, bringing it back to him again, because he talks about anxiety quite a bit. And like some of the comments that he says about, like, you know, you got different character archetypes. Like, you've got some people that are like, you know, they could be introverted. Often introverts, they think a lot, and they are within themselves, where extroverts, they're more outward, but they have to be social, and they get energy from being social.
Yeah.
Whereas introverts, they like time alone, and sometimes when you spend a lot of time with a group of people, you feel a bit drained, so you have to come apart and then recharge, so to speak.
Yeah.
And I mean, with lockdown and how that's affected everyone differently, like introverts, some of them are like overcharged because they've spent so much time alone. Whereas the other side is extroverts, they're like itching to get out, like, and everything to go back to normal, and it's like they can't, like, you know, function the same as what they would. And my wife is extroverted, I'm introverted, and like, it's really weird. Because like for her, it was more the not seeing the family that she struggled with. Yeah. And she really struggled with that side. Whereas I'm like, as long as I can talk to them on the phone and FaceTime the call, I'm good.
It's fine.
Like I'm fine. Like
sit by myself.
Yeah. And you realise you're an introvert when your life doesn't dramatically change that much because of lockdown.
Oh, I know. That's what happened to me. I was like, nothing's different.
Yeah, it hasn't really dramatically changed apart from being able to go out for entertainment and like meals out and stuff. Apart from that, it hasn't really changed that much because I'm still working. I'm still active. Like there's some parts in the first lockdown where I wasn't as active because it's like it's fresh, it's new, and it's like, wow, what is this? Like it's new territory. Do you get me? So I'm guessing a lot of people would have had anxiety then that maybe would have never experienced it before in their life.
Definitely.
Do you get me? So it's a weird one. It's interesting, isn't it?
Yeah. Lockdown's done crazy things to people, hasn't it?
It has. And I mean, people act out of their ordinary character as well. That's another thing during lockdown. Like they're doing things that they would never ever do before. But yeah, it's a weird one. So in the sense of men.
Men.
In the sense of men, have you ever been around men that have had low self-esteem where it's been evident? Yeah. Straight away.
Boom, straight in there.
What have you noticed from a female's perspective?
Okay, so many things. They almost overdo the like masculine side. It's almost they go over the top to overcompensate for feeling insecure. They get very intimidated if they are around another man, or if you're both around another man that is secure with himself. They will put him down to try and get up above him. So I've noticed that a lot. They'll basically pick a small thing wrong with that person and be like, oh, they think they're so hard, like look at his arms, they're tiny. And it's like, what? Why are we going there? Like why does this even need to be a conversation? So it's and it's always spoken about, isn't it? When someone's insecure about something, they'll pick it up on another person. And it's so true. And it's that they have to put other people down. And then especially with, like, for me, for example, it would be, don't get too good because it will make me look worse. So let's just keep you on a like my level. I don't want you to go too high. And I was having this conversation yesterday with someone, and they were just saying, like, but behind, they say behind every great man is a good woman. And he was like, well, I think it's behind every successful woman is a secure guy. Like he has to be secure. Because if he's not, he's going to pull you down. It's that Dave song, isn't it? My Ex. So good. And he goes into it so much. And he says, like, I was, like, annoyed that she was going off and getting, like, this job. But really, I was insecure because I thought she was going to run off with those other guys. And I should have been bigging her up, but I was pushing her down. And it's, he says something like, it's funny how the insecurity of men can literally destroy a woman. And I'm like, that has happened to me. That's why it hit me so hard. That has happened to me so often. But it's so subtle. It's not an obvious thing, and that's where it's difficult.
Well, you could understand it with your point of view, because I mean, like, you're out there, you're known, so it's different. It's the dynamics.
Even before that, though, it was still there. Really.
But I could imagine it's increased now because you've got that power position.
Do you know what it used to be? Where it used to really come out was with money.
Really.
Massively. Massively. The minute they kind of went down the drive to my parents' house, I could see it. It was that, and then if I went to their house, it was their insecurity, and they'd and I was like, it doesn't bother me. I was like, I'm not even thinking about it. Then it made me insecure about it, and I was like, oh no, I don't want to do that. And I just felt really bad. And it was, money was a big one.
Well, I can see what that is, because I mean, I remember the first time I drove down the path, I was thinking, have I got the right address? Like, is this the right place? Because you never really warned me beforehand. You kind of kept it quiet. You just says, like, you've got horses, and obviously I'm not a horsey person, so I don't know what goes into it, the land that you need for it or anything like that. And I remember driving down and seeing that. So I can imagine you come across a boy that potentially likes you, but then as a man, you want to provide for that woman.
Yeah, I do get it.
You just want to, you want to look after and care for. But if you feel that woman's already got everything she needs, it's like, what are you really there for? Do you get me? Like, so that's how some men.
It's hard.
It is. I think there's a fine balance, and I think it depends on characters. But the first initial meetings, I think there will be that until they find out who you are as a person, and then you talk it out, kind of thing. But some men, the problem with men is that a lot of men, they won't talk this out. You'll have to figure it out, and men and women speak in code, I think. And there's a book that actually I was listening to on the way here. Actually, I've listened to it before. It's called Love and Respect. I can't remember the author, but I'll link it in
You have so many
resources below. Yeah, I'll go through books like anything I do. And he's talking about, it's a biblical aspect. He's talking about women need love and men need respect. And if
I get that though, I really do.
And if a man feels that, like, you know, he isn't doing anything to be respected for, then it's like, why am I here? My purpose here is empty. I'm not living for my purpose.
Yeah.
Whereas a woman, she wants to be loved and she wants to feel like she's cared and appreciated and loved. Not saying that women don't want respect or men don't want love. It's just that both communicate love in different ways, and some are more sensitive to some ways than others.
Yeah,
and that's why
I can see this.
Like the 5 love languages, things like that. I think that's why those are so powerful, because men and women love in different ways.
Yeah. And talking about the respect thing, and I wouldn't have done this intentionally, but whenever I've wounded an ex-boyfriend, it's because I've basically said I don't respect them.
Yeah.
In another way, not in a direct, I don't respect you.
Yeah.
But I don't know, about a comment they said or something, and I'll be like, nah.
Yeah.
Or like, I don't really need your opinion on that.
That's
and that for them, it's like, you can see they're like,
yeah,
oh, I got really hurt. And I'm like, oh no. The problem is I didn't respect, that's why I haven't stayed with them, because I didn't respect them, because I went to a lower level of settling. And so how could I respect someone? And it's not by settling, I don't mean that they were bad people. They're lovely people, but I was settling. And so how could I respect that? It was actually somebody, as my physio was saying, I was like, I just can't find the right man. And then we were talking about it. She's like, you're settling. You're not on a mutual respect. And I was like, oh, wow. It's like actually really important.
It does make a big impact, doesn't it?
Yeah, definitely.
And I think definitely, you know, the love and respect thing, it's such a powerful concept. And I mean, when you think of, married couples, marriage life is another chapter, and you're going to come to that. And it's working out other things, and it does expose certain areas. And I'm no expert in it at all. I'm still figuring out loads. Like I'm 9 years deep now, and there's still new stuff that I'm coming across. I'm like, really, how's that work? Like, and I've still got my calculator out trying to work it out and stuff, like, and it's puzzling. But I think it's, men show things differently. Like, say if Stacey does something where it makes me feel like I'm not respected. Yeah. Like, she could make a decision on something that's important, or something I would see important. It wouldn't necessarily be important, but I see it as important. She makes that decision, and I'm not consulted with that decision. That feels like a lack of respect.
I get that.
So sometimes I would, like, you know, you distance yourself. You won't bring it up all the time. Sometimes you do, depending on what mood you're on. But if you're stressed with work, or you're constantly working, you haven't really got time to be in your feelings, because you got to keep it moving. Like,
it takes time. Yeah, though.
It does. So you just keep it moving, but you distance yourself. But then, when you really think about it, that's not unconditional love, because that's love on conditions. Like, the conditions is like, you have to show me respect, otherwise I'm not going to show you love.
Oh, this is deep.
Do you get me? Like,
this is so deep.
It is. And like,
you take that away from me, I'll take that away from you.
Exactly. And that's the problem. And I think I only learned this when I started looking at the biblical way of showing love, because obviously God's love is unconditional. There's no conditions on that love.
Unconditional love's hard.
Exactly. And I mean, I try and show it with my daughter now, and we talk about it often, because Nai's deep like me as well. Like, she gets all this. She asks questions on all this.
I love it.
But we talk about, you know, God loves you regardless if you sin or if you do bad things. Don't get me wrong, you're not meant to, and you're meant to try your hardest not to, but he loves you regardless. Whereas we're meant to have that same type of love to other people, because one of the things to test to see if someone is a Christian is to see how they love others. Is it based on conditions, or is it based on like unconditional love? Regardless, even when someone's not lovable, you're showing them love. Yeah. And it's hard to do in the moment, but when you get time to sit down and reflect, you realize you're doing wrong. I will go back to Stacey and I'll be like, yeah, my bad. I shouldn't have done that. Like, that's me. Like, and I'll hold my hands up, then she'll say, yeah, you're right. And then she'll probably say, well, no, really, I should have come to you. Yeah. And then that's a mutual understanding. And I think that's how marriage works.
Yeah.
And it's a hard thing to do, and both people have to be on the same page, because if one person is thinking it and the other isn't,
Yeah.
you'll go to that person and you'll say, I'm sorry, and they'll probably say, yeah, you should be. Like, it's a different response.
People
Do you
do
get me?
that.
Like, exactly. And I think that changes everything. I mean, thankfully, she's very patient. She does put up with me in some aspects, because I am busy a lot with work and everything, so I'm thankful. And although we are total polar opposites, it's like we work because we complement each other, if you get me.
Do you feel like you've had to improve on like learning how to do unconditional love, and how do you develop unconditional love? How do you go about finding it?
Like, I think that's something that I'm learning now. I mean, I think with Stacey and I and my mum, my close inner circle, I've mastered to a degree. I would say
Boom.
mastered as in, like, I know when I should be doing it. I know when I'm making a wrong choice. When I make that wrong choice, I know I'm doing it. It's just the pride that don't allow me to turn around and say it at that time. But eventually I will. I think the better you get at it, the quicker you are to respond when you're doing it wrong and turn and change your ways.
So it's first noticing it.
Yeah. So it's definitely first noticing that you're doing wrong in the first place.
Yeah.
And then it's having the courage to look within yourself and say, actually, no, now it's time to go and apologise. Like, hold your hands up and say, no, I was wrong.
It's funny, isn't it? Because the way you're talking about unconditional love, it's not like, we're not talking about a feeling. Yeah. We're talking about a doing.
Exactly.
And this, I'm sat here going, like, for example, say I was married and my husband really annoyed me, and he didn't like, and I'm like, how do I make myself feel love towards him? You don't, do you?
No.
You act.
Yeah.
It's doing and it's acting.
Exactly.
Which is so different to what culture teaches us.
Exactly.
And Netflix.
Exactly. It's true, because culture, it tells you some lies, man. I mean, it confuses, if anything. It tells you the polar opposite of what it should be. But that's why, you know, biblical aspects, as much as some people don't choose to believe in God and that's their choice, but when you look at the principles that are there, no one can flaw the principles, because principles stand the test of time. No matter what culture is and what's happening within the world, those principles still work. It's like, if certain marriages are failing or relationships are failing, that's because they haven't got those solid principles.
Yeah.
And most of the time, it always, when you narrow it down, it always comes back to that. And it's hard for them to admit when they're going through it at the same time. But after the years pass and they look back and they're reflecting, they'll always hold their hands up and say, yeah, mainly it was this, if I'm honest. Do you get me? Like, so it's that, and that's the beautiful thing about, like, God's principles. I think it makes you wiser for your time as well.
Yeah, because everyone says that about you, don't they? That you've got it's an old soul.
Old soul, yeah. Like, yeah. And it is literally because it isn't because I'm intelligent or nothing to do with that. It isn't, like, literally. Like, I'm just being straight. Like, I'm not the most super intelligent person, but there's certain things that you can apply from scripture that make you appear to be intelligent, because you're not going off your own principles. It's off the biblical principles.
Yeah.
So because of your conduct and the way that you are as a person, it's just...
It's wisdom as well, isn't it? God gives you wisdom.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So there's that's the man's perspective. So from the woman's perspective of, you know, showing unconditional love to a man, what would you say is, like, you know, one of the biggest struggles where you can't love a man because, like, you know, there's something, there's a quality in a man that, like, you know, there's something that makes a man totally unlovable?
This is so hard, and I feel really challenged in this at the moment. Because what I feel challenged about is what is, like, a good thing, obviously, to have, like, you have your standards or you have what you want as a person, but then what is, like, not the word unacceptable, unattainable, or, like, you can't expect someone to, because I'm a perfectionist, I can rub that off onto all right. You can rub that off onto someone else and be like, they have to be perfect in everything. Then I get worried, like, oh, they're not going to be, are they? Because no one is. But then what if I don't love them because they're not perfect? And then what if I can't be with someone because this is where I'm always like, yeah, like, my standards are so high, and then what I end up doing is then settling, and I go back and forwards from, like, this settling to this unattainable, like, they have to be like this. So it's a really difficult one to answer, because I haven't been in it. So
or you haven't been in it with the perspective that you've got now.
No, very true.
Yeah.
But I'm just thinking, for me, I feel like they need their own sense of worth.
Mm.
And I have to have this contract of don't get in a relationship with someone, and there's 10 points on it, right? And
Contract.
It's a contract I wrote to myself.
I think I remember you telling me that. Actually. Yeah.
Right. And it was, I have to look at these points before going into something with someone and going, these are non-negotiable sort of things.
Mm.
And it's like, is he emotionally available? Like,
Really?
yeah.
Yeah.
And is he, not that he has to be like, I'm still building my self-worth, but like comfortably like happy with himself.
Yeah.
It doesn't need to be perfect, but is that there? Because I've dated so many people who aren't. There's one point, like, don't get into a relationship through winter. It's a thing. It's a thing.
No, I could imagine.
It's a thing. But yeah, loads of different things like that. And I feel like there for me is, they're important. But the unconditional love, it's if you've made that commitment to someone, that's why it scares me. I'm like, it's not a fluffy commitment. It's a big commitment.
Yeah.
Because you're going to have to love them when you don't feel like loving them.
That's it.
So make sure you get your...
Are they worth loving at
this
those
is it.
times?
How do you know?
Yeah. At those
how
times
do,
when
no,
they're
I'm
unlovable.
asking you a question.
Oh, really?
Like, genuinely, how do you know?
I don't know. It's a funny one because for me, like when me and Stacey got together, we was young and I was a total different person.
Yeah.
And she was a total different person. And I think, what you want, what I wanted then is totally different to what I want now. But she's grown into what I want now, if that makes sense. And hopefully I've grown into what she wants now.
Yeah.
But I think because we've been on a journey where, she's been there with the growth, because at the time when I was becoming a Christian, a lot of things changed. Things like, sex before marriage.
Yeah.
Obviously, we was having sex before marriage.
So hard.
And then to all of a sudden, I'm a Christian. It's like no sex before marriage.
Yeah, to switch it, change it.
It's just like a big shock. And don't get me wrong, we didn't do it perfectly, because you have days when you slip and you fall and you do things that you shouldn't, but you feel the guilt. But that allowed to build a solid foundation. I got to know her more intimately than ever before. We had talks and discussions, and we went through things that we never went through before, because we never had to show other intimate sides, because sex was always the intimacy. And I think that's what happens a lot in today's culture. Like a lot of people that don't know how to be intimate with someone. And that's the struggle.
Not just sleeping with them, but
exactly.
Everyone thinks intimate means like jumping into bed.
Exactly. And there's more ways. There's like,
emotionally intimate is so much harder.
Exactly.
Than just taking your clothes off.
Because you have to make yourself vulnerable in that sense, because it's opening up the real side of you. Really, no one apart from your other half should know the intimate sides to you. So those are sides that you don't show to nobody. Do you get me? Like, so you've got that, and then once you get a glimpse of who they are, then you make the choice. Are they worth loving? And most of the time you can't help it, because like, I mean, she's the only person that I've loved like that, so it's different. Do you get me? I can't say anyone else. Don't get me wrong, I've had relationships before, not serious relationships, but they're not like, I didn't love them. And it's not to be nasty, but there wasn't nothing there to make me feel, I'm willing to put up with this stuff that I don't like because I love you. It's like, if you show me something I don't, I'm off. Like, it's as simple as that.
Bye.
Like, it is, and it's that's just the truth of it, because I think there's relationships that are transactional, and there's relationships that are
I get that,
love based. Do you get me? There's two different things, and I think a lot of the time people split up with people because it's a transactional relationship.
Definitely. And it's hard finding the relationships that are love based.
Exactly.
For sure.
Exactly.
That's what I really really struggle with. Another question that I have, I want to ask this question is, like physical attraction.
Yeah.
This is such a deep question. Do you feel it wavers through a relationship, or do you think that it builds as you get more attracted to their personality, you almost get more attracted to them physically? Yeah.
I think it does waver. It does waver.
Does it? And that's normal, and that's okay.
I think it is. I think it is. I mean, I think. I mean, don't get me wrong. Like, I think, like with me and Stacey, like I'm always the more, you know, I'm the always one to initiate sex
Yeah.
and things like that. I'm always the one, but my sex drive is higher than her drive.
Yeah.
Like, so that could be an element. But at the same time, it's like physically I'm attracted to her at all times.
Yeah.
But at the same time, when you're around each other consistently and you're growing older together,
Yeah.
sometimes that can waver. Do you get me? Based on the emotions that you're feeling. Do you get me? Like, you
Yeah,
could
I
be
get
tired.
that.
Say if you're in a season where, you know, you're constantly working, you're on the go, and you haven't got much time to really sit down and be in your thoughts or think about anything, or even sit down and just appreciate your wife.
Yeah.
Like, just sit down and really take things in because you're moving. It's like,
Yeah.
yeah, I've got a deadline tomorrow, I've got to edit. Like, so I'm up in my room and I'm focused on that. My headspace is taken up by that much stuff.
Yeah.
I don't allow the time to actually, like, you know, just let it sit and just rest and appreciate, like, the beautiful woman that I've got. Like, sometimes you don't. And sometimes you do get unappreciative. Like, you do. Because don't forget, we're living in a world where everything is photoshopped. Everything you see on videos, well, not so much videos, but on photos, is like Photoshop showing perfection. And sometimes if you're not careful, you can get caught up in the track of the comparison thing, where you're comparing women or celebrities or whoever it is, or people that you see on movies, to the person that you're with. Whereas realistically, I know, because I'm in that industry, that you know, it isn't realistic. It's been edited. Like, I get that, because most of the time I'm doing the editing in the stuff. Do you get me? So I get that. But even though I'm in the industry, I can easily be pulled in. So imagine what it's like for men that aren't in the industry and they don't understand, they can't spot when things are edited. So, like, I speak to men all the time, and they say about, like, you know, private conversations that they have, and they say, like, you know, I'm just not attracted to her no more. And, like, they do say that. And then normally that's when a man will look to cheat.
Yeah.
Because a man is, I think men are visually stimulated more than women. I mean, even if you look back to Adam and Eve, like, I mean, I read it in a book called His Brain, Her Brain as well, which goes into the psychology of how men are stimulated, and when men see certain things, they release more feel good hormones.
Yeah.
Whereas women don't all the time. They need something else to stimulate that. But if you look at Adam and Eve, when Eve was created, regardless if you believe in that story or not, when Eve was created, the actual saying is Adam saw Eve was good. Do you get me? So he saw, it was like a visual thing.
Yeah.
Do you get me? That's what it says. So it must have saw that she was a beautiful woman. Do you get me? And that's what attracted him. So when you think of things like that, and, you know, there's more men that watch porn than women that watch porn.
Visual, yeah.
Do you get me? So that shows they must be visual.
Yeah.
Do you get me? Whereas women, they're more emotional. They're emotional, and even when it comes down to, like, you know, sexual experiences, it's not necessarily that one person is better at sex than another person. It's that they love this person more, so the sex feels different compared to this person. Do you get me? Like, and it's those kind of dynamics around.
So when your friend says, "I just don't find her attractive anymore," do you think they can work to a place where they do by, like, practicing unconditional love, or do you think it's just, that's it, game over?
I think it needs a perspective reset, in the sense of, like, you know, they need to reset their perspective, and we all need it now and then. We all need to, like, you know, come out of the world, reset their perspective. And often this is why death is often
a big one.
Considered like a big perspective shift, and health as well. Like, if you've ever been, like, unhealthy and you've had to go to hospital, like, it makes you realize what's important in life.
So true.
Do you get me? And it's the same with death. Like, there's a saying in the Bible, it's better to go to a funeral than a party. Do you get me? Like, and it's true, because
I haven't seen that one.
Yeah, it's deep, because, like, if you go to a funeral, it makes you contemplate, actually, you know what, life is short, look at what I've got around me, be thankful and show gratitude. Whereas when you go to a party, most of the time people are drinking, they're merry, they're not even considering the deeper things of life, they're just being happy. Do you get me? And often a lot of bad things can happen at parties. Often when someone, like, you know, the amount of men that I know that, like, the girl that they cheated with, they met at a party. Or they met on a night
and
out.
Happy place.
Or they made a decision that was a wrong decision when they was drunk, because it was at that party or at that club. Do you get me? Like, so it's like one brings in a deeper understanding and maturity about life, and the other it's like you're given over to your physical feelings.
Yeah.
Do you get me? Like, so there's two different takes. So I think men as a whole, number one is a perspective reset, really looking at your perspective. Is my perspective right?
Yeah.
But I think women can do it as well.
Oh, 100%.
I think women as well, because women can get caught up. So I think it's really important.
That was a deep topic to go off on.
Yeah. It's you with the questions.
Yeah, sorry. It's because I normally interview people, so I'm like, ooh.
No, that's
It is interesting though. It's nice to have like a male perspective of it.
Yeah, that's it. It's the first time we've had a female on the show, actually.
Yeah.
We're the first female on the show.
Yes.
So yeah, and it's always interesting to hear your perspective, because obviously your journey that you're living through now is different to most.
Yeah.
Do you get me? But at the same time, you've got same characteristics that are common within women as well. So,
yeah.
Yeah, it's a good perspective.
There's so much.
Yeah. So we'll have to do another one another time.
Yes.
There's literally loads we could go on to.
I know, that's the thing. I think we could talk for hours.
Yeah, but we're gonna actually film one for you now.
Yeah.
Actually, yeah. So if you do want to see that one, which is on a different topic, what is the topic again?
Just our journey. So
Yeah.
it'll be not similar, but yeah, I don't know. We just go wild.
Yeah, yeah.
A bit like this one.
That's it.
Sorry, I always stray off the topics.
No, it's cool. Like, this is just an open discussion. That's the good thing about this. Although there's a few things we've hit on, and there's a few tips that people can pull out of this, but
if anyone wants us to talk about something, they should just comment it, right?
Yeah.
And we'll happily talk about anything.
That's it. Just literally ask the question. You can either email us or you can comment below, and yeah, we'll do another one. Bound to do more in the future anyway.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah. So thanks for coming.
Thank you for having me. Oh yeah, in my own
course.
house.
Like, yeah. Yeah. So yeah, that's the end of the episode, and yeah, thanks a lot, guys, for listening. See you on the next one.
Cool.